Hello, everybody. Hope you guys had a wonderful holiday. We will be talking about the January 2024 Spotlight analysis. I don't really have too much here, so skip the music. Let's begin. All right, let's get started. So this is going to be the Spotlight Cash tier list for January 2024. We're in the new year. Oh my god. Wow. All right, let's get started. So first things off, we do have the general ratings, right? S is kind of like everyone should be interested. A is also very good, and B is solid choice if you like one of the available cards. So those are really the tiers where I would say I'm generally okay with you picking these cards. Generally fine. And then C and D are generally, I would say, not worth it overall, since you have to be kind of selective. You don't get that much spotlight. So generally, I'd lean to the first three. But if you really like the spotlight artwork, right, that might be a reason why you'd go for a C tier. And then D is you have to just like the spotlight. You're not really going for like progression or anything like that. So first off, this one is very different since there's no like free week where it's just old cards. They're doing something different where instead of 4 or 3 or 4 a month, it's now 4 to 5 a month. So you have that essentially makes everything more expensive since you only get a couple of spotlight keys per month, and now there's more options to use those spotlight keys on. So because of that, we have to be a little bit more selective, but I didn't really let that affect me too much. So first off, here we have the Caiera High Evolution Nebula tier. So this one will be S tier for me if you're missing all three cards. So the reason why we have this very highly rated, these are all Series 5 cards. So they're 6,000 tokens if you want to buy them in the token shop. And they're all very good cards individually, in my opinion. Sierra's already been out for a while, so I can kind of see the stats, kind of see the playstyle. And it's fit my criteria of a good card. I'll probably have some type of first impression of the card itself. But I do think it's an acceptable card that is likely to see play. It's kind of slotting in where armor would be and kind of just making those decks a little bit safer since it just hits the whole board, so you don't really have to armor in a particular lane. You can kind of put your one drops in different lanes, which sometimes armored kind of force you to stack your ones in one lane or anything like that. It also protects you from Shang-Chi. So there's a lot of good benefits to the card. So I'm generally having it as acceptable by itself. So you've got Caiera, you've got High Evolutionary, which has been just a staple, very, very good card in the meta ever since this came out. There's always high tier decks to be made using High Evolutionary as some type of base. So just a great card. And Nebula, once again, always been a staple one drop. Honestly, it's gotten a little bit better as well with Caiera since you can just kind of have Caiera protecting your Nebula. Nebula is just an annoying card that kind of encourages your opponent to play in particular lanes. So just good set of three cards that if you're missing all three of them, this would be a no-brainer. Go get this here. So that's a great start. Even if you're not missing Nebula, I still think it's A tier. High Evolutionary is still a staple, something you really want to be getting, and just a very, very strong card. And then Nebula is not as good as High Evolutionary, but still very, very strong, very, very respectable. Even if you're just missing Nebula, I would still consider picking up this Spotlight. And then Caiera itself, this is more, it's a good card, and if you just want Caiera, like that's fine. That's okay with me. So overall, this is the best spotlight of the month if we're gonna spoil things, in my opinion. So definitely feel free to pick up this one if you are waiting on this video or anything like that. So yeah. Next up, we have the the nerfed card, Werewolf by Night. So I had this lower, I had this CCDD, but I realized if you just are missing all three and you want Werewolf got worse, like by far. It's not. It used to be one of the best cards in the game, honestly, but it's now a little bit worse, and worse enough that it's not needed in your collection right now. In its current form, you don't need Werewolf. Like you really don't have to play this card, but it's still okay enough that it's not atrocious. You can still play it in a bounce shell, and it can do some work. You have to be a lot luckier. You maybe need Zabu into Werewolf and then do your combo. So it's not clean as it used to be, but it's still playable. But it is a significant nerf that this spotlight really doesn't have that much appealing. Howard is moving from Series 5 to Series 4, so it's a lot cheaper. It's also a card that sees basically no play, so it's not a card you really want to be picking up. And Hercules, I'm really not impressed by the move archetype. You're going to have to show me a consistent move archetype deck first, and then I will re-rate all my move archetypes. But my general impression is if you're a move archetype synergy card, I don't like you. You gotta prove it first. So Hercules, move archetype, not a big fan of. So overall, if you're missing all three and you want Howard, Werewolf, and Hercules, then yeah, sure, maybe acceptable. But other than that, we're going into the C and D tier. I forgot to change the colors, I think, of all the tiers. So I'll probably pause and then fix the colors for the remaining. Let's go. Woohoo! Colors are fixed. Even the first one. So next up, we do have Miek, Annihilus, and Phoenix Force. So with this one in general, I'm not. Miek is a Series 4. Phoenix Force is also going to be moved down to Series 4 once the Series drop happens. So you have two Series 4s and Annihilus. Now, once again, I'm not a big fan of this. You're pretty much only picking up this series, the Spotlight section, because you want Annihilus. Now, is Annihilus good enough to warrant being picked up next to two like Series 4 cards? Honestly, my takeaway is no. But if you want Annihilus, like that's fine, right? Like if you're missing all three, you want Annihilus, that's fine. If you want Annihilus by itself, like I'm not sure that's deserving of a spotlight. That's why the Annihilus spotlight is a C tier. But it is there. But I don't think this is like the best use of your spotlight, essentially. So kind of similar to this one, where the quality is not high enough to really warrant it. But if you're missing all three, then that's like acceptable enough. So that's my thoughts on Annihilus. It's kind of like this one, just not super, super good. But essentially that would be the only argument to pick up this spotlight. You really want Annihilus. Yeah. Next up, we do have something that I do think is worth picking up in itself, and that would be Loki. So Loki is definitely better than Annihilus. Now, I will say my opinion of Loki has mellowed out a bit, and I don't think it's as demanding. I think the new meta, the new archetypes people are playing are a little bit better, and Loki isn't as dominating as it used to be. So, my opinion is like Loki isn't a problem that might need a nerf anymore, but it is still a good deck. Like I'm not saying it's a bad card or anything. It's a good deck. I just don't think like the stats are problematic at the moment. Like I think there's enough variability where Loki's not really a problem child right now. So but still a good card, still worth it, still A tier for me if you want to pick up Loki. Hidden Monkey is honestly not very good. It got nerfed and that really hurt it, where you had to kind of it was pigeonholed into one particular archetype, and the archetype isn't very popular right now. So not a card I would really jump for. Grandmaster, I'm also not sure about. It could be good, it could be not as good. I don't know. So that one's a question mark for me. So I'm not really going to put too much opinion on that. I'm more leaning at the Loki and the Hidden Monkey. Loki is worth picking up through the spotlight. Hidden Monkey, I would say, is not. So that's kind of the argument there for these cards, whether you want them or not. And then we do have a fifth week. It's something they said they want to start doing. So that does make all the spotlights a little bit more expensive, since you have to choose between 5 weeks or 4 or 5 weeks instead of 3 or 4. So last one we do have is Beta Ray Bill, Galactus, and Elsa Bloodstone. So this one I do have a B minus, because Galactus, I just think is a weird card to evaluate. I personally don't have Galactus still, right? And I don't think it's that worth to get. But I'm biased, and I know I'm biased, right? But I see Galactus is still very popular. It still has a good average cube rate, even though its win rate is on the lower side. Its cube rate meaning that when you do win, you can probably snap early and aggressively and do well. So it has that potential. So it is a good potentially. It's a decent climbing deck if you know how to pilot it. However, it's not a good winning deck. Like, you're not going to feel like, oh, I'm winning every match playing Galactus. You're gonna have the matches that are poor. So it's a card that is maybe worth picking up if you're a Galactus fan, if you like playing, if you find to Galactus players, you like their playstyle, things like that. I would say okay, go for it. But I do think it is strictly not as good as some of the other Bs I do that are there. So I have to put a little asterisk, a little minus there. But it's still worth it if you like Galactus players. So this is more of like, if you're a Galactus player, don't let me stop you. Essentially, like, it's still okay. I'm biased. So that's the caveat there. But when it comes to Elsa Bloodstone, honestly, not really seen too much anymore. It kind of took a hit with all the other nerfs, right? It got nerfed to be a little bit more awkward to play, and there are synergies that you used to have that you don't have anymore. So it's just a little bit weaker of a card that doesn't see as much play. So it's not really worth picking up in the spotlight, even though the spotlight itself is triple Series 5, right? Those are usually high priority, but Beta Rebel looks playable for sure. Galactus, up to your own opinion there, and Elsa Bloodstone is honestly, in my opinion, not as necessary in your collection as need be. So those are the 5 weeks we have here. I would say this week is the best week. If you're going to spend it all, I would probably lean towards this week if you're missing two out of the 3, I would say. And then generally the other 4 weeks are, except for Loki. Loki is like acceptable as well, but the other 4 weeks are like, do you really want the middle card, right? Do you really want Werewolf or Annihilus or Galactus? Then maybe. So that's my thoughts on the spotlights for January 2024. We'll see what the future holds, but I'll get back to the swing of things. Hope you guys enjoy this one. Take care and have a wonderful day. I know my camera's been like this the whole time. I'm like, what are you gonna do? Maybe I'll fix it for later. Peace. Educated calling snap. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be improving. How you do when you'll hit infinity and won't go back. I did that manually, so yeah, ignore that.